stop. Before you do anything else today, before you send that text, before you make that call, before you share what you're feeling, stop and listen to these words, because what I'm about to tell you is going to save the very victory you just won. You woke up different this morning, didn't you? Something shifted overnight. Something broke. Something released. You can feel it, even if you can't name it yet. That weight you've been carrying, it's gone. That battle you've been fighting, it's over. That test you've been enduring, you passed. You won. And the reason you're hearing this message right now, at this exact moment, is because heaven knows what most chosen ones don't. Victory is more vulnerable than warfare. The moment after you win is more dangerous than the moment before. And what you do in the next 24 hours will determine whether you get to keep what you just earned or lose it before you even fully realize what you received. Here's what nobody tells you about winning spiritual battles. The enemy doesn't concede gracefully. He doesn't just accept defeat and move on. The moment you cross the finish line, the moment you achieve the breakthrough, the moment you win the victory, he launches one final desperate strategy to steal it back. And that strategy is always the same. Get you to speak prematurely. Get you to announce before it's sealed. Get you to celebrate publicly before it's secured privately. Get you to share your testimony before the testimony is fully written. Get you to broadcast your victory before the victory is fully integrated into your reality. Because words have power. Your words specifically have creative power. And right now, in this fragile, sacred, powerful moment, right after your victory, your words can either lock in what you just won or unlock what you just secured. That's why you cannot speak to anyone today. Not because you're being antisocial, not because you're being secretive, but because you're being strategic, because you're protecting what cost you too much to lose through careless conversation. I know what you're feeling right now. You want to tell somebody. You want to share the breakthrough. You want to celebrate the victory. You want to testify about what just happened. The urge to speak is almost overwhelming, isn't it? That's not wrong. That's natural. That's the human response to winning after fighting for so long. But natural doesn't mean wise. And right now, wisdom is saying, be silent. Stay quiet. Hold it close. Protect it fiercely. Let the victory settle into your bones before you speak it into the air. Today is not the day for conversation. Today is the day for consolidation. Not the day for announcement. The day for integration. Not the day for broadcasting. The day for grounding. You finally won, chosen one, and this message is heaven's instruction on how to keep what you just received. Listen carefully, follow precisely, because your obedience today determines your reality tomorrow. Let's start with the truth you need to anchor into. Your victory is absolutely real. What shifted isn't imaginary. What broke isn't temporary. What changed isn't going to reverse itself. You genuinely won. The spiritual battle is over. The test is complete. The breakthrough is authentic. But here's what you need to understand about spiritual victories. They exist first in the unseen realm before they manifest fully in the seen realm. Right now, your victory is like a seed that's just been planted in fertile soil. It's real. It's alive. It's destined to grow into something massive and undeniable. But it's also vulnerable. A seed, in its earliest stage, can be disturbed by too much handling, contaminated by the wrong substances, or prevented from rooting by external interference. The same is true of your victory. It's real, but it's in the early formation stage. It's transitioning from spiritual reality to physical manifestation. And during that transition, It needs protection. When you speak about it too soon, you expose it to energies that can interfere with the manifestation process. Doubt from others can create doubt in you. Questions from people who don't understand can create confusion in your clarity. Skepticism from those who didn't witness your battle can create hesitation in your confidence. Even well-meaning responses can be dangerous right now. Someone celebrating with you might inadvertently ask questions that make you second-guess what you know. Someone congratulating you might trigger comparison or performance energy that distorts the purity of what you just received. The victory needs silence to seal itself. It needs privacy to solidify. It needs time in the dark, underground, hidden space to develop roots strong enough to withstand the exposure that will eventually come. Think about when a butterfly emerges from a cocoon. If you interfere with the process, if you help it out too early, if you expose it before it's ready, you damage its wings and prevent it from ever flying. The struggle of emergence is what makes the butterfly strong enough to use its wings. Your victory is emerging right now. And the silence you maintain today is what allows it to complete the emergence process without interference. You're not hiding the victory. You're protecting it. You're not being secretive. You're being wise. You're not withholding testimony. You're ensuring there will be a testimony worth sharing when the time is right. The victory is real, but it's also vulnerable. And vulnerability requires protection, not publication. Here's something most people don't understand about the power of speech. Words don't just describe reality. They create reality. Your words are not passive observers reporting what already exists. They're active participants shaping what will exist. And right now, in this precise moment after your victory, your words carry more creative power than they have in months. You're in a heightened spiritual state. Your frequency is elevated. Your consciousness is expanded. Your connection to the divine is stronger than usual, which means your words right now are exponentially more powerful than your words yesterday. And that power cuts both ways. The same words that can lock in your victory can also unlock it. The same speech that can seal your blessing can also sabotage it. The same testimony that could eventually inspire thousands could, if spoken too soon, unravel what just formed. Here's how it works. When you speak about your victory today, you're not just sharing information. You're creating an energetic agreement with whoever you're speaking to. You're opening a channel between their consciousness and your manifestation. You're inviting their thoughts, their beliefs, their doubts, their limitations into the sacred space where your victory is trying to take root. And if the person you speak to doesn't have the spiritual capacity to hold the frequency of what you just won, if they're operating in doubt, in skepticism, in limitation, in fear, their response, even unspoken, creates interference in your field. It's like trying to tune into a clear radio signal while someone nearby is broadcasting static. Your victory is the clear signal. Their doubt, their questions, their inability to comprehend what you experienced, that's the static. And static interferes with reception. But it's even more serious than interference. When you speak your victory prematurely, you can actually speak yourself out of alignment with it. You can describe it in ways that limit it. You can explain it in terms that reduce it. You can testify about it in language that contradicts what heaven intended. And every time your words don't match the frequency of the victory, you create dissonance. You create a gap between what is and what you're saying about what is. And that gap becomes a space where the enemy can insert doubt, delay, or distortion. This isn't about superstition or fear of jinxing yourself. This is about understanding spiritual mechanics. Your words are creative forces. And right now, those forces need to be directed inward, not outward. They need to be reinforcing the victory to yourself, not explaining the victory to others. Silence today isn't withholding. It's protecting. It's ensuring that the first words spoken over your victory are heaven's words, not human interpretations. It's making sure that the narrative being established is the divine narrative, not the limited understanding of well-meaning people who weren't in the battle with you. Words can unmake what heaven just made. Don't give them that power today. The enemy has been trying to stop you for months, maybe years. He's thrown obstacle after obstacle at you. He's sent attack after attack. He's deployed every strategy in his arsenal to prevent you from reaching this moment. And he failed. You won anyway. You broke through anyway. You received the victory anyway. But he hasn't given up, because he knows something that most chosen ones don't realize until it's too late. He can't take your victory from you, but he can get you to give it away. He can't reverse what heaven just did, but he can get you to sabotage it yourself. And his primary weapon for this final assault is your own mouth. Here's the strategy. The moment you win, he sends an overwhelming urge to speak, to share, to announce, to testify. And that urge feels righteous. It feels like gratitude. It feels like you're honoring God by sharing what he just did. It feels like withholding would be ungrateful or disobedient. That feeling is a trap, because when he can't defeat you directly, he gets you to defeat yourself indirectly through premature speech, through words spoken to the wrong people, through testimonies shared before they're ready, through celebrations that invite energies that don't belong in your victory space. He knows that if he can get you talking today, he can get you tangled. Tangled in explanations that don't capture the truth. Tangled in conversations that drain the energy you need for integration. Tangled in other people's responses that contaminate your clarity. He knows that if he can get you to open your mouth, he can get you to open the door to interference. And interference is all he needs to delay, distort, or diminish what you just won. Think about it. How many times have you had a powerful spiritual experience, immediately told someone about it, and watched the power drain away as you tried to explain it? How many times have you received clarity about something, shared it too soon, and found yourself confused by other people's questions? How many times have you won a victory, celebrated it publicly, and then had to fight to maintain what you thought was already secured? The pattern is consistent. Premature speech leads to lost power. Early celebration leads to delayed manifestation. Quick testimony leads to prolonged testing. Not because God is punishing you for sharing, but because the enemy is using your sharing to steal back what he lost. He can't take it by force, so he tricks you into handing it over through careless conversation. Your mouth is powerful, and right now, the most powerful thing you can do with your mouth is keep it closed, not forever, not permanently, just today, just during this critical 24-hour window when the victory is sealing itself into your reality. The enemy's last resort is your mouth. Don't give him access to his last weapon. Let me explain something about how spiritual victories actually become permanent fixtures in your life. They require integration, and integration is an internal process, not an external one. Right now, your consciousness is recalibrating. Your energy field is reorganizing. Your nervous system is adjusting to the new frequency. Your entire being is upgrading to match the level you just stepped into. This is happening automatically, naturally, divinely. But it requires your full presence. It requires your attention to be directed inward, not scattered outward. It requires your energy to be consolidated within you, not dispersed through conversation. Every conversation you have today pulls you out of integration and into explanation. Every time you try to put your victory into words, you pull your consciousness out of the experience and into analysis. Every time you engage with someone about what happened, you split your energy between being present to the integration and being present to the conversation. And integration cannot happen while you're distracted by articulation. Think about learning a new skill. When you first learn it, you need focused practice. You need to repeat the movements without thinking about them too much. You need muscle memory to form. And that formation happens best in quiet repetition, not in constant explanation of what you're learning. The same principle applies to spiritual victories. Your soul is learning to operate at a new level. Your spirit is adjusting to new authority. Your mind is recalibrating to new truth. And that adjustment happens most effectively in silence. When you're silent, you can feel what's shifting. You can sense what's changing. You can notice what's being rearranged in your inner world. But when you're talking, explaining, sharing, you're too externally focused to notice the subtle internal movements that are the real transformation. Integration also requires you to sit with the feelings without rushing to process them through someone else's perspective. Right now, you're probably feeling a mix of relief, joy, disbelief, awe, peace, and maybe even some disorientation. Those feelings are part of the integration. They're your system adjusting to the new reality. But if you immediately go talk to someone, their response will influence how you interpret those feelings. Their questions will make you question what you're feeling. Their excitement might amplify one emotion while suppressing another. Their concern might introduce fear where there was only peace. You need to feel what you feel without interference. You need to experience your victory without other people's interpretations coloring your experience. You need to know what you know without other people's doubts creating uncertainty. Silence creates the space for that pure, uncontaminated integration. Conversation interrupts it. Not because conversation is bad, but because right now, conversation is premature. The victory you won needs to become part of you before it becomes part of your testimony. It needs to integrate into your identity before you can accurately represent it to others. It needs to settle into your soul before you can share it without losing its essence. Integration happens in silence. Protect the silence. Protect the integration. Protect the process that turns a moment of victory into a permanent shift in your life. Here's a concept that will help you understand why today must be silent. You're in a sealing period. The victory is won, but it's not yet sealed. The blessing is received, but it's not yet secured. The breakthrough has happened, but it's not yet permanent. Sealing is different from winning. Winning is the moment of victory. Sealing is what makes the victory irreversible. Think about it in practical terms. When you sign a contract, that's the agreement. But when you seal it, when you notarize it, when you file it officially, that's what makes it legally binding and enforceable. The signature is important, but the seal is what gives it permanent power. Your victory has been signed in the spiritual realm. But today is the sealing day. Today is when what happened in the invisible becomes locked into the visible. Today is when the temporary triumph becomes the permanent transformation. And sealing requires specific conditions: quiet, stillness, focused intention, undisturbed energy. All the things that conversation disrupts. When you speak today, you break the seal before it's fully formed. You open what should remain closed during the setting process. You expose what should remain covered during the curing process. Imagine trying to seal an envelope while someone keeps asking you questions about what's inside. You can't focus on creating a tight seal because you're distracted by explanation. You can't apply the pressure needed because you're divided between two tasks. The seal ends up weak, incomplete, compromised. That's what happens when you try to share your victory during the sealing period. The seal that should be forming gets interrupted. The permanent bond that should be setting gets disturbed. The irreversible transformation that should be solidifying gets compromised. Today, you're not in sharing mode. You're in sealing mode. You're not in testimony mode. You're in locking it in mode. You're not in celebration mode. You're in consecration mode. The celebration will come. The testimony will be shared. The victory will be announced. But all of that comes after the seal is complete. All of that comes after what you won is so deeply integrated, so thoroughly secured, so completely irreversible that no amount of talking about it can disturb it. Right now, talking about it can disturb it. So right now, you don't talk about it. You seal it. You sit with it. You let it solidify in silence. You allow the spiritual glue to dry completely before you handle it, display it, or share it with anyone else. Today is sealing day. Honor the seal. Protect the process. Stay silent while heaven makes your victory permanent. Let me be brutally honest about the stakes here. One conversation with the wrong person today can cost you months of progress. One careless explanation to someone who doesn't understand can delay the manifestation of your victory. One premature testimony to someone who isn't spiritually equipped to receive it can create interference that takes weeks to clear. This isn't an exaggeration. This isn't dramatic overstatement. This is spiritual reality. And it's a reality that most chosen ones learn through painful experience after they've already lost what they should have protected. Here's how it happens. You're so excited about your victory that you reach out to someone you trust. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's someone in your spiritual community. You share what happened. You explain the breakthrough. You testify about the victory. And their response is less than what you expected. Maybe they don't seem as excited as you are. Maybe they ask questions that plant seeds of doubt. Maybe they bring up concerns you hadn't considered. Maybe they share their own story that contradicts what you just experienced. Maybe they're just energetically heavy, in a way that immediately dampens your joy. In that moment, something shifts. The clarity you had starts to blur. The certainty you felt starts to waver. The peace you were carrying starts to crack. And before you know it, you're defending your own victory, explaining your own experience, trying to convince someone else of what you knew with absolute certainty before the conversation started. That's the cost. That's what wrong words to the wrong person does. It doesn't just fail to validate your victory, it makes you question it. It doesn't just not celebrate with you, it introduces confusion where there was clarity. And here's the devastating part. Once that seed of doubt is planted, once that confusion is introduced, once that interference is created, it takes time to clear it. Sometimes days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months of having to re-establish the certainty you had before you spoke. The person you talked to might not have meant any harm. They might have genuinely cared about you. But if they weren't on your frequency, if they weren't operating at your level, if they weren't spiritually mature enough to hold space for what you experienced, their response created contamination in your field that now has to be cleaned up. And while you're cleaning it up, while you're re-establishing your clarity, while you're fighting to get back to the certainty you had, your manifestation is delayed. Not because God took it back, but because the interference created static in the channel between spiritual reality and physical manifestation. This is why today's silence is so critical. You don't know who the wrong person is. You can't always predict who will respond in ways that contaminate your victory. Someone you thought would celebrate might respond with jealousy. Someone you thought would understand might respond with skepticism. Someone you thought was spiritually mature might respond with limitation. The safest strategy is to speak to no one. Not because everyone is wrong, but because you can't risk the wrong conversation costing you months of the breakthrough you just won. Later, when the victory is sealed, when the manifestation is complete, when the testimony is fully formed, then you'll know who to share it with. Then you'll have the discernment to recognize who can receive it and who can't. Then you'll have the stability to maintain your truth even if someone responds poorly. But today, you protect the victory by protecting it from premature exposure to people who might not be equipped to honor what you just received. Silence today prevents months of cleanup tomorrow. Here's something you need to trust right now. There's a reason you were led to this message. There's a reason the instruction to stay silent is resonating in your spirit, even if your mind is arguing with it. There's a reason something in you knows this is true, even if your ego wants to resist it. Your spirit knows what your mind doesn't. Your inner knowing understands what your logical thinking can't comprehend. Your soul recognizes the wisdom in this instruction, even if your personality wants to explain it away. That uncomfortable feeling you're having right now, that tension between wanting to share and knowing you shouldn't, that's not confusion. That's confirmation. That's your spirit saying, yes, this is the instruction. While your mind says, but I want to talk about it. Listen to your spirit, not to your mind, not to your emotions, not to your desires. Your spirit knows the spiritual mechanics at play right now. Your spirit understands the vulnerability of this moment. Your spirit recognizes the danger of premature speech. You might be thinking of all the reasons why it would be okay to tell just one person, just your spouse, just your best friend, just your mentor. Your mind is generating justifications for why this instruction doesn't apply to that specific relationship. But your spirit is quiet. Your spirit isn't arguing. Your spirit is in agreement with the silence. Trust that. Trust the deeper knowing over the surface reasoning. Trust the spiritual intelligence over the mental gymnastics. Trust the still, small voice saying, not yet, over the loud, insistent voice saying, just this once. Your spirit has kept you this far. Your inner knowing has guided you through the battle. Your soul has navigated you to the victory. Now, in the aftermath, trust that same intelligence to guide you through the protection phase. If your spirit is saying silence, stay silent. Even if your mind says it doesn't make sense. Even if your emotions say it feels unnatural. Even if your personality says it seems extreme. Your spirit knows, and your spirit is trying to save you from a mistake you haven't made yet, but absolutely would make if you ignored this instruction. The fact that you're still reading this, the fact that something in you is resonating with these words, the fact that you haven't dismissed this as extreme or unnecessary, that's your spirit confirming the instruction. Listen to it, obey it, trust it. Your spirit knows what your mind doesn't, and what it knows is this. Today, silence is your greatest act of wisdom. Let me give you the vision for what's on the other side of today's silence. Tomorrow, not literally tomorrow, but soon, you'll speak about this victory with an authority you don't have right now. Tomorrow you'll testify with a clarity that's still forming today. Tomorrow you'll share from a place of such deep integration that nothing anyone says can shake what you know. But you can only get to that tomorrow by honoring today's silence. Right now, you're marinating in victory. You're soaking in the frequency of breakthrough. You're saturating your entire being with the energy of winning. And marination takes time. It requires the substance to sit in the seasoning, to absorb the flavor, to become completely infused with what it's surrounded by. If you pull it out too early, if you expose it before the marination is complete, you get something that tastes good on the surface but hasn't absorbed the depth of flavor it was meant to carry. Your testimony is marinating right now. Your understanding of what happened is deepening with every hour of silence. Your authority to speak about it is building with every moment you resist the urge to speak prematurely. And when you finally do speak, when the sealing is complete, when the integration is finished, when the marination has done its work, your words will carry weight they don't carry right now. Your testimony will have power it doesn't have in this moment. Your authority will be undeniable in a way it can't be today. People will listen differently. Not because you've become a better speaker, but because you'll be speaking from a place of complete integration. You'll be testifying from a sealed victory, not a fresh one. You'll be sharing from authority, not excitement. And that authority is what changes lives. That authority is what breaks chains in other people. That authority is what makes your testimony more than just a nice story. It makes it a catalyst for someone else's breakthrough. But you can't shortcut the process. You can't have tomorrow's authority with today's impatience. You can't have the fully marinated testimony if you keep opening the lid to check on it. Today, you marinate. You sit in the victory without explaining it. You feel the breakthrough without analyzing it. You experience the shift without publicizing it. You let the reality of what happened soak into every cell, every thought, every part of your consciousness until it's so deeply you that speaking about it becomes effortless and powerful. Tomorrow, when the time is right, you'll speak, and when you do, your words will carry the weight of this silence. They'll carry the depth of this integration. They'll carry the authority of this marination. But only if you honor today. Only if you protect the process. Only if you stay silent while the victory becomes inseparable from who you are. Tomorrow, you'll speak with authority. Today, you marinate in victory. Don't sacrifice tomorrow's power for today's impulse. So here we are, chosen one. You've heard the instruction. You understand the reason. You feel the truth of it in your spirit, even if your mind is still negotiating. You finally won. After everything you've been through, after every battle you fought, after every moment you wanted to quit but didn't, you won. And this message is heaven's protection plan for your victory. This message is the wisdom that ensures you actually get to enjoy what you just earned. Don't speak to anyone today. Not because you're being secretive or antisocial. Not because your victory isn't worth celebrating, but because your victory is so worth celebrating that it deserves to be protected first. Today is not the day for announcement. It's the day for anchor, not the day for testimony, the day for integration, not the day for sharing, the day for sealing. You've spent months, maybe years, fighting for this victory. Give it one day of silence. Give it 24 hours of protection. Give it the space it needs to seal itself permanently into your reality. I know the urge to share is strong. I know you want to celebrate. I know you want someone to witness what just happened. But resist, not forever, just for today. Because tomorrow, when the seal is complete, when the integration is finished, when the victory is so deeply rooted in your being that nothing can shake it, then you'll share, then you'll testify, then you'll celebrate. And when you do, your words will have power that they don't have today. Your silence today is your wisdom in action. Your restraint today is your maturity on display. Your protection of this victory today is proof that you've learned what many chosen ones never learn until they've lost what they should have guarded. You won, chosen one. Don't lose it through premature speech. Don't give it away through careless conversation. Don't expose it to interference through impatient testimony. Stay silent today. Let the victory seal. Let heaven finish what it started. Let the breakthrough become so permanent, so integrated, so irreversible, that when you finally do speak about it, your words will carry the authority of someone who protected what they were given until it was fully theirs. The enemy couldn't stop you from winning. Don't help him stop you from keeping what you won. Today, you're silent. Tomorrow, you're unstoppable. Protect the victory. Honor the silence. Trust the process. You finally won. Now keep it.